again, I'm not here to make fun or make any humor out of this Parkinson's disease. Yeah, we can make jokes about it, and it can be funny. It's Saturday Night Live material for the next 25 years, but it's also very serious. It puts our country in a dangerous, dangerous place because if something serious happens, and it's not one of Joe's good moments, it's one of his moments. How do we respond? Well, the truth is, just as guilty as Jill Biden, Kamala Harris, Jake Sullivan, John Kirby, and Anthony Blinken, among others, are in allowing this compromised president to continue, the corporate news media. The corporate news media is also responsible, complicit, for the dangers we're facing for not having anyone actually in charge. They let it all slide. In fact, what they did was worse. They refused to vet Joe Biden at all in 2020. Right now, I believe Joe Biden's decline was already on display during that campaign, 2020. And his symptoms were coming out back then. And instead of doing its job, the corporate news media attacked Donald Trump relentlessly, lied about Hunter Biden's laptop. And Joe Biden himself was kept in a basement and out of sight. You see, the mainstream media, people like Chuck Todd, Joe Scarborough, Mika Brzezinski, and others hated Donald Trump more than they love America. They hate Donald Trump more than they love America and more than they wanted to do their jobs, because if they had, Joe Biden would have been destroyed by 20 million votes. Far more than could have been manufactured or gamed or rigged. But now, now that's all changing. Finally, the media is now bailing on Joe Biden everywhere. Everywhere. Listen to this.
But look, even when I was running for Senate, and each time I ran, quite frankly, not a joke, Philadelphia in particular, got me across the line. No, I'm not joking. No, I mean it seriously, organizationally and in terms of fundraising, the whole deal. Well, look, here's the deal. This election is going to be about block and tackling, simple, basic politics. Simple. It's going to be a matter of how many signs we get out, how many doors we knock on, how many calls we make, and how many requests we answer.
Yeah. Joe is just not there with us, and like I said, the media is not with him anymore either. Listen.
Can I talk about an issue for 1 minute on Friday night? Can he win Michigan? I don't know. I'm not sure what Democrats he's going to win right now. The entire thesis of the campaign, was democracy's on the ballot. And when George Stephanopoulos asked him, well, if you lose and all these bad things come to pass, will you be okay with that? And he said, well, as long as we gave it our all. Now, if I was a Democrat who's hasn't blinked since January of 2017, or one of these never-Trumpers who's worried about all this, and I heard Joe Biden admit that it's all just a facade, that it's all just a talking point, I would be freaked out right now to find out there's no animating issue for this campaign. It's just a grift. It's a grift.
Yeah, it's just a grift. Yeah, a grift. And now that the media has finally decided to do its job, it's getting rough inside the press briefing room. Let me give you an example from yesterday. Karine going back and forth, getting held to account, actually held to account, her feet to the fire. I'm sorry, that answer is no answer at all. Here it is.
I hear you. Guys, hold on a second. There's no reason to go back and forth and be in this aggressive way.
Miffed around here about how information's been shared with the press corps about him.
What do you missed about? What do you missed about?
Everything he just asked about.
And then every time I come back and I answer the question that you guys asked.
Correctly, you didn't have to come back and clean it up.
I never answered the question incorrectly. That is not true. I was asked about a medical exam. I was asked about a physical. That was in the line of question that I answered. And I said, no, he did not have a medical exam. And I still stand by that. Matter of fact, the president still stands by that. He had a verbal check-in. That is something that the president has a couple times a week. A couple times a week.
Now in regards to Dr. Kevin Kennard.
And I am telling you right now that I am not sharing confirming names from here. It is the security reasons. I am not going to do that, Ed. It doesn't matter how hard you push me. It doesn't matter how angry you get with me. I'm not going to confirm a name. It doesn't matter if it's even in the log. I am not going to do that from here.
I am not going to tell you the truth from here. Ed, I don't care how hard you push me, I'm not telling the truth. So what does that mean? Well, in the short run, we have a very dangerous situation because our enemies and frankly our friends too all know how weak Joe Biden is. Makes us vulnerable as a nation. That's amplified by the wide open border, of course, but it also means change is coming to America. Because the damage of the debate on June the 27th is not going away. It's over for Joe Biden. He's staying in the race. Fine, do whatever you think you need to do. Jill Biden pushing him to be there. But now Democrats are staring at the worst polling numbers they have seen literally in decades. Listen to this.
Who outperformed their July national polls? This is major elections during the Trump era. We can start in the midterms, right? Take a look here. This is a 2022 midterm. This is a generic congressional ballot. In fact, Republicans were underestimated by a point. They outperformed their July polls and the actual result by a percentage point. You go back to 2018, Democrats did outperform their polls, but just by a point. Basically, the polls were right on at this particular point in the midterm elections. We talk about the presidential race. Last time around, Donald Trump actually did better in the results than his July polls by 5 points. You go back to 2016, you see something very similar. That is, the July polls actually underestimated Donald Trump. He outperformed his July polls. So the idea in the Trump era that the polls have underestimated Democrats, whether it be in a Joe Biden matchup, whether it be a matchup against Hillary Clinton, whether it be in the midterms, at least in the national polling that right now shows Donald Trump in his strongest position, simply put, is not true. If anything, the polls have underestimated Republicans during the Trump era, especially in the presidential races in 2016 and in 2020.
On that.
There you have it. I knew that. Donald Trump has always outperformed the polls today. Real Clear Politics average has Donald Trump with a 4.9% average lead across this nation in a five-way race that includes Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Yeah, right now the Democrats are in real trouble. They don't know what to do. They've got a guy that won't lead, and he's got all the delegates heading into Chicago. Good to be back, my friends. I'll have more in a moment.